Welcome to the Atomic Impact Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Osborn. And on this podcast, we interview successful business owners and business leaders for them to share atomic impactful lessons that they've learned throughout the course of their career and businesses and share them with us so we can all learn together. As always, this show is sponsored by the LinkedIn Reverse Podcast Method, the new way established businesses are creating a reliable acquisition channel of conversations with their ideal prospects. We use this method about 26 qualified leads and sales calls in 10 days without any ad spend, outreach, endless social media posting, or any of the old, ineffective traditional marketing methods that everybody hates. To find out more, direct message me on LinkedIn to have a chat. The link to that will be in the show notes below. But on today's show, our special guest is Zahid Moneer. He's the head of global healthcare of Akur Capital, providing M&A advisory. So Zahid, welcome to the show today. And I want to start off by asking you a question that I always love to start off with, which is this. If you were to start over in what you're doing now, but knowing what you know now, what would you do differently in the first 12 months?
Super. First of all, thank you, Jason, for having me on the podcast. A real pleasure to be here. And thanks for a nice, easy, but extremely difficult question to start off with. I think what I would do differently is the importance of clients cannot be understated, even from a very early part of your career. So developing those client relationships, understanding what you're doing is for the clients is absolutely fundamental in investment banking. So I would really take my time to go out of the way, interact with the client, try to emphasize with them as much as possible from the start, understand what they're looking to do, and align my own development, skill sets, etc., to make sure I'm serving them in the best possible way. I would do that at a much earlier stage of my career than perhaps as generally is required in investment banking, where you do that sort of 5-6 years down the line.
Yeah. Are there any key things that you've learned to help build those relationships better during the years of you doing this?
And I think one of the key lessons I have learned is that no matter what you do, how small or how large, being helpful on the advisory side is very important to clients. And you never know what thing sticks out for them. It may be something small that you did that was really helpful for them, but you may perceive that as being small. You may spend a ton of time doing a load of work, but they didn't really value that. So you should really try to do things, no matter how menial it seems to you initially, it could actually have a huge impact later on for that client. So I would take each task that they give or any advice that you give to them, try to take it as seriously as possible and try to be as helpful as possible, no matter the size or the value of the task that you're trying to complete for them.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Just always be looking at add value. So important. Well, over the years, what have you seen be the biggest change in the sector you work in within M&A?
Yeah, so as mentioned, I'm in the healthcare sector, and my whole background was around healthcare. I did my doctorate in pharmacology at Cambridge. I then shifted into investment banking through the chartered accountancy program and then the various investment banks. And so I've been able to see the sector from inside out perspective, and the technology. I guess when you compare healthcare with all the other sectors, the technology is one of the most fast evolving things and phenomena out of all the sectors. I guess tech and AI, etc., have obviously played their roles in the last couple of years. But in general, at Cambridge, in the turn of the millennium, we had the human genome sequence being finally elucidated. And then that's just gone to another level of analysis that now that we've got AI and other tools and mechanisms to understand how each of the specific genes work within the human body and the implications that has for developing drugs in the pharma industry, the biopharma industry, and how people can really cure the incurable diseases from before. So at that level of development and change has just gone, it's changed exponentially. So we're seeing companies acquire other companies, big pharma looking at biotechs that make huge changes to their pipeline, shareholders not wanting to just rely on the typical big blockbuster drugs that bring in 5 or 10 billion a year, but looking to invest in really small biotechs that may have big impactful changes in the way the industry looks. GLP-1s, for example, we've seen a huge impact that had on obesity, and then the effects on diabetes, etc. So gene therapy, gene editing, monoclonal antibodies, it's just huge from the days of the 70s, 80s, 90s, where everything was small molecule chemistry in the industry. So, we are seeing a huge amount of changes in terms of how the industry is evolving, the M&A that's required, the capital raise that is being deployed, and that's all reflective of people catching up with how the new paradigm, the strategies being employed by the pharma industry.
Yeah. It's fascinating with all the impact of AI and technology advances and stuff. Is there, with all of the advantages of all of that, is there a downside that you're seeing in it as well?
I think people are looking at shortcuts as well. It's always good to do things in a very efficient way. But one of the hallmarks of the pharma industry is to have very thorough research, R&D development, and really mitigating risks. There is a consideration that with some of these tools, people look to get products into the market in a very quick way. COVID was a classic example of a time where people were rushing to get vaccines onto the market for obvious reasons. But the long-term implications of some of these drugs, vaccines, biologics, needs to be, to my mind, still fully considered and taken into account by the regulatory bodies. So it's all good that we're getting better drugs for critical diseases onto the market, but we shouldn't compromise that in terms of having a very full risk assessment to go hand in hand with that.
Yeah, absolutely. As you grow in what you're doing, what are your goals over the next 2 to 3 years? What would you like to achieve personally?
So having worked in investment banking, M&A for about 20 plus years, one of my key aims, and as we've just discussed with the evolving sector and lots of new technologies coming, what we're finding is that a lot of these earlier companies, biotech companies at, say, phase 1 in clinical development or preclinical phase 2, have really been cash starved. And it's hard for investors or people looking to deploy capital who are looking at 60 to 70 opportunities a month to understand really where to deploy the capital. So one of my aims of the next 2 years is really to make sure I try to pick out the gems which would have a huge impact on the pharma, the bio industry, for patients within key disease areas, oncology, cardiovascular, rare diseases, and making sure that those early stage cash-starved companies get the required investments that they need in order to get their drugs or products onto the market. So that's something I would really like to see happen to a great extent over the next couple of years.
Yeah. When you talk about having the gyms for people to invest in. If there is someone listening to this and they're like, "Hey, I love what you're saying, Zahid, but what would make me a gym for people? What's the best way to do that? What are some of the key things that people need to be looking at to position them as that gym to be invested into?"
Yeah, and that's a great question. I think when investors come to me for advice on where to deploy capital, some of the key things are the biotech or the platform that you want to invest in. Do they have a novel way of approaching disease, which gives them a better efficacy profile, i.e., treats the particular disease in a much more better way and has a better outcome? So for cancer, it would be a longer sort of period for patients to live, a better safety profile. These type of things, we would want to compare with what's currently in the market, if there is a product in the market. And, we want to have a look at the impact on the number of patients. So how many patients would this affect and the severity of the disease on those patients? and the lack of treatment that's currently out there. So when you're investing into a biotech, look at something that actually works, number one. Number two, it affects a significant amount of patients in a debilitating disease for which there is some treatment or limited current treatment. So those are the things you're going to look at. And then the attractiveness, of course, from a financial perspective is if you invest in such a platform, what is the likelihood that the big pharma company down the line, 4 5 years down the line, as you're about to launch the product, would acquire you, or the probability of your investment or the company going through an IPO. So those are the different factors that at an early stage investor into a company like this would want to look at, is what would their exit would be, having helped this company develop into the next value inflection point of their life cycle.
Yeah. For people that are looking for what you offer, what's a good point for them to reach out to you? Is it better for them to reach out kind of early days so that you can start saying, okay, this is what you need to line things up? Or is it better for them to reach out to you at a later point? Like, what's the best time for people to contact you?
Yeah, and a lot of people do contact me when they look to raise capital. But by that time, it would have been a lot easier if they had contacted me earlier, so we could have drafted the equity story, advised them on what the investors are looking for, rather than when they've already gone out to market looking for capital. So I think a short answer to your question is as early as possible, to make sure the company starts already ticking the boxes that are important from an M&A or from a capital raise perspective, to make sure they've got the right angle, they're sending out the right messages to investors. They've got things like the data room, the scientific intelligence, or the scientific evidence required for people to review that in diligence. Their IP is in good form, and they've covered the bases there. Those type of things would be great to have in order before you start going out on M&A or a capital raise process.
Yeah, very good. Very good. Well, speaking of contacting you, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you if they're looking to understand a little bit more how you can help them out?
Certainly. So on LinkedIn, my contact details are there. So anyone is more than welcome to contact me there. My details are also on the Akur Capital website with my email address and phone number.
Amazing, amazing. Well, I definitely recommend people reaching out to Zahid based on what you just heard today. Like, if you are in the healthcare industry and you're looking at raising investment, raising capital, definitely reach out to Zahid because he can help you out. So Zahid, thank you so much for being on the show today, taking out your time and just sharing your experience and wisdom in this industry. I really, really appreciate that. And as a reminder to everyone listening, this show is sponsored by the LinkedIn Reverse Podcast Method, the new way established businesses are creating a reliable acquisition channel of conversations with their ideal prospects that doesn't rely on any of the old, ineffective traditional marketing methods that everybody hates. To find out more, direct message me on LinkedIn to have a chat. That's Jason A. Osborn. The link to that will be in the show notes below. And until next episode, stay inspired.